I'm delighted to be here today, and I'm delighted to be invited to this wonderful colloque, and the exhibition was wonderful. I have the pleasure of talking. I think we can get started with the slides, please. Um, I have the pleasure of speaking in English for those of you, because I have 20 minutes, and if I speak in French, ça va prendre d'autant plus de temps. Alors, oui, je commence. Okay, so I'm speaking to you about, it's kind of a bridge between what Anne was just speaking about and the material, how we understand art through the materials, and the catalogue raisonne that was explained to you by Jane Warman this morning. Let me see if I can get the next one here. Okay. Okay, here we go. So what I'm showing you now are just the landing pages on our website for the catalogs we have done so far on our permanent collection of Impressionist and post-Impressionist paintings. This is something that the Getty helped us launch in 2014 with getting all of the functionalities of a digital catalog with the idea of a book. So it's not a website, it's an actual book. And we've managed to do them according to some of the exhibitions. The work we've done with the Conservation Lab and with our scientists has helped us to prepare for these. For Monet, we've done Gauguin, Manet, and most recently Caillebotte. And as you can see, it was first published in 2015, but we've updated it and relaunched it with new information this year. The Cezanne catalog is prévu for January 2026. It will be authored by Paul Smith, who's here, and working with the conservation scientists as well as the conservators, and supervised by me. It also came out of the research done for an exhibition that took place in 2022 at the Tate Modern. Katie Kremnitzer worked on this with me, Tate Modern, and then it came to us in the spring, summer of 2022. And for that, we did, oops, I want to go back to the catalogs. And that was the result of that was a catalog, which also included an essay about the materiality, about some of the discoveries made. And at the Art Institute, we're not the Barnes. We don't have a million, but we have 8, which is good. And one of them is in your exhibition, the one on the lower right, the bathers, beautifully installed. Thank you. And we also have a number of works on paper, but we only showed in 2022, we showed the watercolors, and those are the ones we'll be including in the scholarly catalog. So art history and conservation science. This is the painting we started out for. It's also the first painting to enter the Art Institute's collection. It was purchased by the same collector and mécène who gave us Georges Seurat's Sunday on La Grande Jatte. It came into the collection in 1926. And we know it was shown in the Volard exhibition of 1895. It's signed, which is unusual for Cezanne. And this is when we decided to drop the accent, since we know he didn't sign it with an accent. So we made a radical move to do that throughout. And we also know that it was rolled. It has some of the characteristics having been rolled. So as Anne was saying, it was probably sent back to Paris. Then it went, it went to Cologne, then it went to Paul Rosenberg, and it entered in 1926. One of the things we did just to prepare was to undo the synthetic varnishes that had been put on probably in the 1960s. Here's our conservator, Alison Langley. And I know this is really hard to tell, but on the right-hand side is what has been, this varnish has been taken off, because the varnish kind of gives it a laminated feel. It's hard to tell in these slides, but bear with me. So on the left is the Vue d'Auvers, not cleaned, and on the right is that little house that just now pops. And there's so much articulation in the vegetation that is around it. Now it's just lively, it's much more dynamic. Just getting rid of the varnish, not doing any other treatment, but just taking off what was masking it before. The same with the bathers, which you see in your exhibition, cleaned in terms of removal of varnish. On the right-hand side is the part that's been devarnished. And then in this painting also, it's so encrusted. And when we took the synthetic varnish off, you really see how he just slabbed on the paint with probably some kind of palette knife and just this almost cement-like division between the background and the tablecloth. With Madame Cezanne, again, it is the varnish removal on the right-hand side of her that makes her sing out, and lots of details come out, and Paul has written about this in the catalog that I'm going to be speaking about, but just the idea of these small touches of paint to change completely the way her mouth works and the mask-like quality that he gives to his wife Hortense in our Woman in the Red Armchair. In the bathers, this is a small painting that was given to us quite recently, and it doesn't have many exciting things. We took off the varnish, but mainly it's just the idea that it was probably cut down from a larger painting by Vollard, with whom it had been, probably a sheet of sketches or something. So you see these legs hanging out on the left-hand side, and there are many other instances, but just in our painting, you can see how he has this kind of muscle memory, and he does this repetition of forms, and these forms of the knees and legs reappear again and again in his androgynous bathers. Then we also, in preparation for the exhibition, did work going beneath the surface, as Anne has been talking about, XRF, and the vase of tulips, looking for the non-invasive way of figuring out the pigments that were used. And it was amazing because what looks to me like a kind of Renoir blue background ends up being 12 or 13 different colors, not only of blue, but of lavender and of pinks that are all just so subtly combined that it takes on, when you see it in print, it just looks like a blue background. We also went beneath the surface with x-rays, and we found that there's an extra orange hanging out in front of the vase, which he decided didn't need that and scraped it off. But if the traces are still there for us to know about, and write about, we did similar looking at the works on paper in our department. This was just interesting because there seems to be, in this very early drawing done when he was at the Academy, maybe a baby Mont Saint-Victoire lurking in the top right-hand corner. But also in the exhibition, because we did juxtapose paintings with watercolors, we were able to just see things. And in this instance, the large watercolor in the Art Institute collection is very, very close to the painting. And the conservators in Prints and Drawings were able to really think about how the watercolors related to the final paintings, especially when they're exactly the same format. And we were fortunate that Bruno Elie and his team sent us the watercolor palette as well as the painted palette, watercolor boxes rather, and the palette for Cezanne, which we think is probably his since they were found in the atelier. And so we were able to determine what the pigments were and what different colors he was using, watercolor to paintings. And that was written about in the exhibition catalog, The Materials of Cezanne. And then just looking at like the Solothurn painting of the skulls with our exactly the same format watercolor of the skulls, and the going beneath the surface of the watercolor and trying to and seeing that there were many layers, that he didn't just do it all in one go, but rather he would return to it and add another couple of touches. And the idea is, it was brought up by Walter Feigenfeld a long time ago, but I think it's really brought home now, is that he didn't just, this is not just a study, the watercolor, nor is it just an after image. It's done simultaneously, that what he was learning from the transparency of the watercolor, he would, in thinking about forms, he would go back and forth, and that's particularly noticeable in the Man in the Straw Hat from the Thyssen-Bornemisza in Madrid, where in our watercolor, which was large watercolor, where you see that he's learning from one and going back and forth between the others. And this idea of process and of learning from one medium to another was extremely important in our thinking about our paintings in our collection and how we can make this known to a general public. And so these kinds of things I've been talking about were in the essay that was written by the conservators and the conservation scientists at the Art Institute, A Harmony Parallel in Nature. And here you see how it looks on a printed page. So as Anne was showing, you can show the infrared, you can show x-rays, but they're static, and you can't show what we're seeing in the conservation lab, where you can really play with the different lights and the different examination tools. So that brings us to the catalogue raisonne of our paintings, which is meant to be a combination of art history, but art historians, in this case, Paul Smith, writing with the conservators. So he came to Chicago. I don't know how many times you came. 2, 3, I don't know. 3, 2, yeah, a lot. You came a lot. And worked in the lab and went and took pictures. And so in his essay, in his curatorial essay, which we can't go into today, he would bring all of these things to bear upon what he's learned from them and how how it fits into the story that he knows by heart, because there's no one better to write on Cezanne than somebody who's memorized everywhere he went. Probably most of you in the room, but I can't claim that. So because it's in its beta mode, it's not going to be published until January, so we don't really have, I can't really show you the design because it's not designed yet. We're still in manuscript form. So I'm going to use our Monet catalog as an example. And one of the things I want to bring out is that it's a book. So we look at it, you can look at it on your iPad, you can look at it on your iPhone, but it functions as a book with lots of different dimensions, as Jane was talking about, links to other things. So, and what you're seeing here, the total users, is we didn't really have Google Analytics when we first started it, and so I'm just using the last year, 2 years, but look how many people are looking at this instead of, when we print an exhibition catalog, 2,000, done, and we oftentimes have more left over, which is sad. But anyway, so lots of people are using this, and we're finding they're using it all over the world, that it's not just students, not just educators, but it's just people in general, and they're writing to us. And I know that the Monet catalog was used for at least 2 exhibitions, one Monet in the Thames and another one Monet on the Waterloo Bridge, where they told me that they really use the conservation and essays. So I'm just going to walk you through using Monet, pretend it's Cezanne. The functionalities that you can have with a digital catalog as opposed to a printed catalog. One is the navigation that you can have. If you blow up, if you press on this painting, it's going to blow up and you can look at all the details, but you'll always know where you are in the painting by the left-hand image. The next is footnotes. This is a cool thing. So you can pop on a footnote and it takes you to a drawer, a tiroir en dessous, where you can actually read it, and then you can pop on it again and it takes you back to the text. So you're not doing what you have to do in books where, looking at the back and keeping your thumb in here and doing that, and it's maddening. Also a citation tool, because this is a real serious book and we expect it to be cited properly. So you can click on that and it will immediately jump to citation exactly the way this URL is supposed to be cited. So there should be no plagiarism in this. You should have no excuse. The collector page is important because this is only about our paintings. So it's not the whole story of Cezanne. It's only Cezanne at the Art Institute from beginning, from when it's given to its final conservation treatments and framing and anything about it. And so it's very specific, and sometimes these references are harder to find. So the collector page takes you immediately to collectors. It will be aggregated, so the same collector may have given us 33 other works, and it will always come up with different photographs of how these works looked in the wherever they are. Whatever we can find about the collector will go into this. Then for the provenance, exhibition history, selected references, some of these things are minutes from trustees' meetings. They're smaller things that normally you would have to go to the archives of the museum to find. So The goal of our catalogue raisonne was to say that I'm a graduate student and I want to know everything about Madame Cezanne. So I have to go to curatorial and look at the object file. Then I have to go to the library. Then I need to go to the collections, the registrar's department, to find out its history. Then I go to the conservation lab and work with the conservator and look at it under. So we wanted to put all of that in the hands of the viewer, of the person who's using this. Um, so other documentation, as Anne was saying, precious information from the color merchants to the douane to know when it left the country, when it came back, to all of the different collections that it's been in, all the exhibitions. All of these will be available. And once again, when you click on it, down below in a drawer, a tiroir, you will have the image that's coming up. So there's many different ways to go back and forth between the information and the image associated with it. Finally, marginalia. I love yellow sticky things, and I love writing in margins of library books, which you're not allowed to do, so use yellow sticky. So you can have your digital yellow sticky to put in it, and that once you sign into your catalog online, it is your catalog, and you can add notes, and they will be there when you return to it at another time. And then finally, the technical report and the interactive image viewer, which is where we're going to get back to Cezanne. This is where the combination of what you as a layperson can do with the tools that conservators have. And I'm just showing you this because the next one is not very legible. So the transmitted infrared natural light. These are ways that you can click on one and click on the overlays, and you can actually see the annotations that Anne was talking about to show all of the changes that an artist like Cezanne, who does a lot of changes, even though they don't seem to be, it seems so lightly painted. So now we're back to the catalog. And as I said, it's written by Paul Smith, but it includes that same essay, but now in digital format, which allows you to pop to the technical and interactive images while you're reading it. So it's no longer imprimé, it's now a more vital and dynamic document. Technical reports. So now we're going to look at Madame Cezanne. We know from Katie and Charlotte Hale and Dita Amory from their 2014 exhibition on Madame Cezanne that ours is probably not a copy, but it's made after the painting in Basel, and it was probably made from the painting rather than from Madame Cezanne. It's very likely that she did not sit for hours. It's very mass-like and psychologically remote, and Paul has written brilliantly about the mask, about the touch, and all of these things, which we can't go into, but once this launches in January, you can enjoy that. And here comes something I'm really nervous about because I've never done this before, and I'm going to ask you to launch this slide. So this is a beta example of what you're going to be able to see on the, can they play? Okay. So is it starting? Yes, it's starting. So I'm expanding the viewer to full screen. On the left-hand corner is the image that will always show you where you are. So I'm going to zoom. So I'm using this little thing on the right. You're going to zoom into the face, scrolling back and forth, and you'll see that the face was much more fuller and more naturalistic, more in line with what you see in the Basel painting. I'm going to do this a couple of times. There's a little so that you can really see just how he's changed it. And then I'm going to select from the infrared reflectogram, and it's going to show some of the linear, okay, wait, it's going a little slow, linear underpainting strokes around the head. So you see the green, and I'm going to turn on these annotations so you can see that he didn't use any pencil underdrawing for this. It was just the diluted blue strokes. And now I'm going to scroll back to the painting to show the face. Part of the hair came further down on the forehead. And then I'm returning to the infrared, and I'm going to go down to the hands where the action is. The underpainting, dilute paint, blue paint, you can see partially visible with with the brush strokes, which are broken. Can you see? You probably can't. Anyway, he made lots of changes. Many are not visible in the final, but just to show you how you can really zoom, zoom, zoom in on these. You saw the green showing you the changes. And you can do that at your desk, on your phone, whatever you want, and really go crazy with getting beneath the surface of Madame Cezanne. Now, can you switch? Oh, well, I need to do this first, and then you can. Okay. All right. Now we're going to try it for the second one, the basket of apples, the panier de pommes. Okay. And so again, the image on the left, which you can't see very well. So I'm going to go to. Would you? C'est bon? Non, c'est pas bon. Ça, c'est pas le panier de pommes. Oui. Oh, well, so I'm zooming into the whole overall image, and I'm clicking on the expand button, which will take you to that. And then in the layer image, which you're seeing now, I'm going to go down to that. You can choose any two images to compare. So you can choose infrared, you can choose annotations, and I'm selecting infrared. And just to look at his underdrawing, which in this case was with probably charcoal, zooming into the basket to show how he quickly sketched in the apples. And then I'm going to bring up the annotated layer. This is the annotation, which marks the underdrawing. And you can see this is what's not visible. I'm going to go back and forth so you can see. There's a lot of drawing that's not visible on the surface. You can turn them on and off, and you can see them when I go back to the basic, to the painting as it is, and you can see just how much changed. They were just guidelines for him that he changed as he worked on the painting. And so then leaving the, okay. Yeah, so that's that. Oof. Ah, that makes me so nervous. So what I hope for this catalog and for all of our catalogs, but certainly for the Cezanne Research Centre de Recherche, is that we can start adding to these. We can use what the Barnes Foundation has done with all of their technical reports. We can start talking to each other and have links that Jane Warman and David Nash's and Feichenfeld's catalog raisonne can be linked to a particular object. So for the basket of apples, there'd be a link that would hop you over to the Art Institute where you would get a fuller picture of the conservation efforts and the beneath the surface. And that all of these things can expand because as you saw with the Kayabot, we started it and we added on. We'll just date it differently and it will be another document of that time. And so the digital allows us to make changes, to change our mind, something else, to add exhibitions, to add more of the literature to it than you can in any kind of printed. So to end, at the Art Institute, we isolate Cezanne because he doesn't play well with Kayabot and Renoir and Monet and Cecily and Pissarro and all of those guys. He just doesn't. So on a very local level, I'm hoping that our visitors will go back and want to know more, that there'll be a way we can put that on a label or something so they'll go back and look at this catalog and they too will understand more about this amazing artist. Thank you.